Craig was last seen around 2 p.m. on June 27, 2004, near the Cambridge Manor apartment complex in Scotia, New York. He had just visited a friend there and was later observed walking into the nearby woods. He mentioned he was heading to his parents' home on Yorkshire Court, located in a cul-de-sac, but he never made it there and never returned to the apartment complex. His vehicle was later found parked at the complex, and he did not have his cell phone with him at the time. That evening, Craig's mother reported him missing after he failed to return to their home in Glenville as expected. She stated it was unlike him to vanish without contact, despite some recent tensions between him and his parents. Since that day, none of Craig's friends have heard from him. Initially, his family didn't publicize the disappearance, hoping he had simply taken time to himself and would return when ready. The friend he had visited noted that Craig had been upset over a recent breakup but showed no signs of wanting to run away or harm himself. Back at home, Craig had left behind his wallet and $40 in cash. Before he went missing, Craig had lost his driver's license and hadn't replaced it. There's been no activity on his social security number since his disappearance. No job applications, bank account openings, or tax filings, suggesting he hasn't re-established himself anywhere in the U.S. The area where Craig was last seen includes numerous railroad tracks, but there's no evidence that he was struck by a train. At the time he vanished, Craig had just completed his junior year at Scotia Glenville High School. He was a well-liked student, co-captain of the soccer team, and was being recruited by colleges for his athletic talent. He planned to study elementary education. He had no criminal history, no known enemies, and no prior behavioral issues, although he had been acting somewhat secretive in the days leading up to his disappearance. His family also learned on the day he vanished that Craig had been fired from his job at Price Chopper, where he had worked for 2 months. Unbeknownst to them, he had been pretending to still be employed to avoid telling them he had lost the job. Police and Craig's family do not believe he took his own life or left willingly. While the circumstances remain unclear, investigators and loved ones strongly believe foul play may have been involved, and this case remains unsolved. Hawkins was last seen aboard the Escape, which is a Norwegian cruise ship, on May 28, 2018. Authorities believe she went missing while the ship was 80 nautical miles east of Atlantic City in New Jersey. It's unclear if Hawkins was suffering from mental health issues, but her last couple of Facebook posts were disturbing. They didn't have much context behind them, and they didn't make much sense either. It is suggested she went overboard and ultimately succumbed to the elements. To this day, she has never been heard from again, and she has not been found, and sadly, this case remains unsolved. Michelle Pulsifer was last seen in July 1969 in Huntington Beach, California, where she lived with her mother, Donna Prentice, Donna's boyfriend, James Michael Kent, her older brother Richard, and Kent's young son from a previous relationship. Michelle was just 3 years old. Her brother Richard Jr., who was 6 at the time, recalls Michelle coming into his room one night around July 4th, frightened and trying to hide. Their mother came in, took Michelle away, and he never saw her again. Richard also remembers physical abuse from Kent and witnessing him strike their mother as well. The next day, Richard noticed a large cardboard box covered in blankets in the garage, a box he hadn't seen there before. When his mother found him looking at it, she told him it held a motorcycle seat and warned him to stay out. Soon after Michelle vanished, Donna, Kent, and the 2 boys abruptly packed up and moved to Illinois, claiming there wasn't room in the car for Michelle. Curiously, they brought all the family pets along, but not Michelle. Richard Jr. said he was forbidden from speaking her name after that, and his questions about her were ignored. Kent reportedly told his own son he would only reveal the truth about Michelle on his deathbed. Michelle's father, Richard Pulsifer Sr., who was divorced from Donna and had regular visitation, was never informed of the move. When he found out, he attempted to report Michelle missing, but was turned away due to Donna having full custody, a common legal barrier for fathers at the time. Eventually, he discovered that Donna and Richard Jr. had returned to California without Michelle. Richard Jr., still a child, said he hadn't seen her since leaving for Illinois. Richard Sr. again tried to file a missing persons report but was rejected. Shortly afterward, Donna disappeared again with Richard Jr., and Sr. would not see his son for years. In 1980, he was served with child support papers for Richard Jr., but not Michelle. Donna had remarried Kent, later divorced him, and moved to Wisconsin. When Richard Sr. contacted her, she refused to say where Michelle was. A judge temporarily withheld child support payments, demanding Donna reveal Michelle's location. She never did. Michelle's case remained unreported for decades. In 2001, her paternal aunt hired a private investigator. When interviewed, Donna claimed she had left Michelle in the care of Kent's mother, who later died of breast cancer in 1972. Donna said she never tried to reclaim Michelle because she feared Kent's abuse. However, there were no records of Michelle's existence after July 1969, and people close to Kent's mother stated she was too ill and was an alcoholic at the time to have cared for a child. In 2004, based on the investigators' findings, police launched a criminal investigation and arrested both Donna and Kent for Michelle's murder. Authorities believed she had been killed in 1969 and buried in a remote area, then the family quickly relocated to avoid suspicion. Kent eventually confessed to helping dispose of Michelle's body. He claimed she was found dead in bed one morning, without visible injuries, and that he buried her in a shallow grave at Donna's request. Though he assumed she had killed the child, they never spoke of it again. He agreed to testify against Donna, but died in 2005 before doing so. Donna was tried in 2007 and again in 2008. Both trials ended in hung juries. With no new evidence and 2 mistrials, the judge dismissed the case permanently. Michelle's remains have never been located. Authorities believe she was likely buried in a canyon that floods regularly. If not deeply buried, her remains may have been washed away or scattered by animals. Sadly, this 3-year-old's case remains unsolved. In 2017, Karina Slusser dropped out of Bloomsburg High School in Pennsylvania, just 1 class shy of graduating. She had been a cheerleader and aspired to become a makeup artist. Due to a strained relationship with her mother, she was living with friends in her hometown of Bloomsburg and planned to move in with her aunt in Massachusetts in January. That summer, Karina met Giovanni Piguero, who offered her a place to stay in New York City. In July, she traveled to the city with only her phone and ID, no luggage or extra clothing. At first, she kept in frequent contact with friends and family, speaking with them almost daily. She gave the impression that things were going well. However, after her disappearance, her family learned she had been involved in sex work, advertising her services online. On August 25, 2017, around 1 a.m., Karina called 911 from the Harlem Vista Hotel. She reported that Piguero, whom she identified as her pimp and referred to as Daddy, had stolen $300 from her and physically assaulted her. She claimed he choked her and slammed her into a wall. When police arrived, she was visibly shaken, crying and distressed. Piguero was arrested and charged with harassment, third-degree assault, and criminal obstruction of breathing. A temporary restraining order was issued for Karina's protection. When her family learned about the assault, she downplayed the incident, assuring them everything was fine. In September, following the death of her grandfather, Karina planned to attend his funeral in Florida. However, she later called her mother, saying her social security card and driver's license had been stolen, preventing her from flying. She expressed a desire to return to Pennsylvania instead. Her mother went to Florida for the funeral on September 19th, expecting Karina to arrive home the next day. But she was unable to reach her, and upon returning home, discovered Karina had never arrived. She was reported missing. Although her last known communication was on September 20th, police determined Karina was last seen in the early morning hours that day, leaving the Haven Motel on Woodhaven Boulevard, near 68th Avenue in Rego Park, Queens. Prior to her disappearance, she had been active on social media, but all activity abruptly stopped after September 20th. Investigators believe Karina may have been trafficked by multiple pimps. In November 2018, Ishi Kalanwani, identified as one of her pimps, was arrested and charged with sex trafficking. It was a woman known in court records as Victim 1. According to prosecutors, from September 2017 to November 2018, Wani used force, fraud, and coercion to exploit Victim 1 for sex work across various states, including New York. He promoted prostitution online, and some ads featured both Karina and Victim 1, advertising a two-girl special. Karina and Wani exchanged over 800 text messages between September 10th and her disappearance on September 20th. They allegedly had an argument that day because Victim 1 was upset about Wani's relationship with Karina. Wani told her he would move Karina to another hotel and give her to another man. She was never seen again. In May 2019, Wani accepted a plea deal, pleading guilty to 4 of 5 charges and receiving a 15-year prison sentence. At his sentencing, Karina's mother pleaded for answers. Wani responded, "Honestly, I don't know. I never passed her off to anybody. Is she dead or alive? I'm honestly not sure, but I pray she's alive." Karina Slessor remains missing, and her case is still unsolved. Cynthia Gooding and her friend, Teresa Alfonso, were dropped off at the now-defunct Marathon Movie Theater in Marathon, Florida on August 20th, 1974. They planned to hitchhike to a party that day. Neither of the girls has been seen again. Cynthia's loved ones describe her as a typical teen who enjoyed water skiing in 1974. She had moved from her mother's Portsmouth, Virginia home to Florida to be closer to her father and older brothers. She had a history of dropping out of sight for a few days at a time, and because of this, investigators initially believed she and Teresa had run away from home. However, Teresa had no history as a runaway, and her family stated this would be completely uncharacteristic of her behavior. Investigators no longer believe either girl left of her own volition. The police file for the girls was destroyed in a fire sometime after they vanished. And sadly, this case remains unsolved. Barbara Holick was last seen on June 23, 1995, having drinks with friends at a restaurant near Taos Plaza in Taos, New Mexico. She was known for selling handmade pottery and jewelry at a local gallery. When she failed to show up for work on June 27th, her employer reported her missing. Friends who went to check on her at her Rosarita Lane home and found her front door open and her Ford Fiesta still parked in the driveway. Inside the apartment, they discovered her purse, keys, passport, ID, luggage, and several $1,000s in cash, all left behind. Despite this, the apartment appeared mostly undisturbed. However, one unusual detail stood out. A pair of work gloves was found in odd locations, one on the floor near the refrigerator and the other by the exterior door. Barbara has not been seen or heard from since. A few days later, one of her pairs of shoes was discovered on the couch in a recently vacated apartment within the same building, a unit she had access to for the purpose of managing the outdoor lights. That apartment had signs of tampering. The telephone line had been cut, and the mattress cover was missing. Unfortunately, a maid had cleaned the apartment before police could examine the scene, possibly erasing critical forensic evidence. Barbara was originally from Germany, where her family still resides. She moved to the United States at age 28 and may have been living in the country without legal documentation at the time of her disappearance, though she was not on the radar of immigration authorities. She had been expecting a friend from Germany to visit in the days following her disappearance, and had even bought rafting tickets for the two of them. Described as quiet, shy, and highly organized, Barbara's disappearance was completely out of character. There was no indication she planned to leave, no unusual behavior beforehand, and she wasn't involved in any romantic relationships. There's also no evidence suggesting she left the country. Due to the suspicious circumstances, foul play is strongly suspected. Barbara Holick's case remains unsolved.